Hi everyone. So today I'm going to be doing a declutter video, sort of. So I'm not going to go through my whole collection, though I do sort of want to do a collection tour. This is just going to be going through the palettes that I have very recently decided to get rid of. I do everything on this desk, so it's just got permanent eyeshadow dust. Anyway, so I'm going to show you some of the palettes that I'm going to declutter and talk a little bit about why. Okay, so first up is the P.Louise Watch the Queen Conquer palette. So this one is a two-sided palette, and all right, I'm learning mirrors, but this one I'm getting rid of because I, as you can see, like really haven't used it, and the mirror thing. Anyway, I really haven't used it. And I bought it because I don't have a lot of mattes in these shades, and that's still true, but I don't know, the double-sided palette part of it I don't really enjoy. It makes it harder to use for me. And then I really bought it for this side, I guess, but it looked more green and yellow, and I don't have orange. I don't know, I kind of went back and forth. I even thought about like just repanning this one, and then I could use the mattes in other ways, but I think I've decided that I'd rather just put it on Mercari and see if someone else can love it as it is, because it's no longer for sale. So that seems like a better option. Anyway, so that's the first one. The second one is another P.Louise palette. This is the Whirly palette. And this one also really pretty, but I just get sucked in by greens so easily. And really this palette has more blues, and then like down here some of these other colors, and so this is probably like what I bought the palette for, and then this shade right here. And I just don't need a palette that's this bulky for just those shades. I now have more shades like this, and I just feel like I can part with this. And again, barely used. A lot of the mattes aren't even touched, so it's just sort of thick. So that one's gonna go. And then I'm going to get rid of, and this is weird, I don't know why. So I think that these two palettes from Game Beauty are gorgeous. Like, I love the packaging design. I think it's stunning. I just don't really use them. Again, like, this color story is more blue than it is green, so I don't really use it. I don't use blues a lot. This one also, this was sort of like, I think they released this around Halloween time, so it's like not spooky, but it's sort of a spooky palette. And again, like, I really think that it's gorgeous, but I've swatched some of the shimmers in this palette, and I have otherwise not used it. So again, I'm going to put these in Mercari, see if someone else can love them. And if not, I may keep them anyway. They're not very big. The other thing too is, when Game Beauty came out, this was their first palette, and I was so excited to see something that seemed so different and so special. And their newer releases just don't have that vibe for me. And I have like a completionist mindset about a lot of things that I'm trying to get over. But especially seeing like the direction that they're going, I just don't see myself like talking about that brand much anymore. And with that in mind, it's like, well, then why am I holding on to relics if they don't speak to me? So those are gonna go. Cypress, hey, do you want out then? I can let you out. Come on. Okay, so next up, some Alien Cosmetics palettes. They are now Unearthly Cosmetics. They changed their name. I don't think I've purchased anything from them since their name change. This is the Don't Be Jelly palette. This is multi-chromes, a couple of multi-chromes, and then a couple of those like flaky shimmers, but they're in that like squishy formula. So when I bought this, I didn't really have many of those like squishy shimmers. You can hear garbage trucks. And I think I probably had enough multi-chromes that I didn't need to buy this, but either way, now I have tons of multi-chromes and these flaky shimmery shades in other palettes that I prefer. So this one's just gonna go. I'm trying to keep my piles straight. This one is the Fairy Frolic, also by Alien/Unearthly. Oh no. And this one's cute. I just don't gravitate towards it. I think I could use it more as singles. This shade is really, really pretty, and honestly was like, made it hard for me to pass on this palette because I don't really have anything that like exactly matches. But either way, I just know that, and this shade too. There were some pretty shades in this palette. That's not the point. The point is I just knew that I have these things other places and could do without this, so it can go to a better home. Y'all, I lost my place. Okay. So next up, still Alien Unearthly. This is the Bunnies palette. I was so excited when I bought this one. This is when I really started to get on like the hype train for them, and so when this one came out, I like jumped on it. I thought the artwork was like a little not my taste, but also like very unique and kind of cool. And you can see, again, I've barely touched this one. The shade Golden Egg is beautiful. And that's really the one that makes this one hard to pass on. But I just don't use it. Clearly, I just don't use it. And part of this whole thing too is like a lot of this stuff has been like precious objects, stuff that I like too much to use. And that's not a super productive mentality. But then in thinking about like, okay, I have all this stuff that's like too precious to use, so I don't use anything, which actually makes me buy more stuff because I think like, oh, well, this thing I'll use. And it still doesn't happen. So now I'm kind of like, okay, in a sea of precious objects, which are actually the precious objects that like you will use first? And that's how some of this weeding is happening. So another, I think the last from Alien, from what I can tell, this is the Lore palette. And again, kind of like a spooky mythological vibe, which I really, really enjoy. But I just don't reach for it. It has those squishy shimmers. And again, when I bought this, I didn't have very many of those, but now I have a lot more of them from Adept Cosmetics, and I prefer Adept palettes to these palettes, though I'm not really sure why. I think one of the things that has kind of made me crazy about Alien Unearthly is all of their palettes are different sizes and their pans are different shapes and sizes, and that I don't mind it like among my collection, but within a brand, for whatever reason, it kind of drives me nuts. So that has been one of the reasons it's been easy to like separate from some. I still have quite a few that are staying in my collection. This is the Northern Lights palette from Simply Posh Cosmetics. This is full of squishy shades. Glow and Phenomenal are especially gorgeous. But again, I have more of these shades now, so I just don't need this palette. I want to keep this because I'm not going to lie to you, one of the reasons I bought it was for like the cover art, and like the Aurora Borealis is like a thing that I really love, just conceptually, I don't know, and like the color scape. And so I really, really wanted this just for like the cover art, and then I thought the insides actually match, and a lot of times like the Northern Lights themes that come out, the insides don't match. But again, now I just know I have these kinds of shades in other palettes, so this one can go. This is the BH Cosmetics Blueberry Muffin palette. I bought this because it got a lot of hype and it was not very expensive. It's cute. I just don't need it. I'm not a blue eyeshadow person. I love this shade because I love a glittery white shade. But overall, this just like isn't a color story that serves how I do my makeup very often. And I have, so kind of similarly, I have the Sweet Shop Bubblegum, which is the blue one. And I don't do a ton of blue eyeshadow, so I bought these because when they restocked after like being super hyped and sold out, I bought 4 of them. And so Bubblegum and Cherry on Top are gonna go. I don't do a lot of like red or pink either. These are super cute, and this was a hard one for me to decide, but I kept the orange one and the green one, which are much more suited to my taste, so I still get to keep like the essence of the palettes in the collection, but without having to keep all of them. Especially like I said, knowing that this just like isn't my makeup taste. I'm getting rid of the Nomad Cartagena Magica. I said that bad. It's this one. I generally like orange eyeshadow, and so like for me, this palette is really like this top row. Because, and I like this one. This one's okay, but it's not as like interesting as I would like it to be. This one is a lot like a shade that's in their Tokyo palette. This looked, I think, a little bit more chartreuse, but it's really just yellow. And then it's got lighter shades, and I just don't need them. And it's a lot of like peach, and I prefer orange over peach. So this one is just sort of like it's a bummer because of the Nomad palettes. Like I love the chameleon imprints, and you know, I love the cover art on it, like, you know, with the leopards and stuff like that, even though that's a cheetah and it shouldn't be, but that's fine. So I want it, and again, that completionist mindset like jumps in and makes me like, no, I have to have it. But I've since kind of like talked myself out of that as a way of thinking, so I don't need this one anymore. And it's gonna go. This is my one and only Trixie Cosmetics palette, and I had kind of been waiting to try the brand for something to just like really call to me, and I kept the box on this one because I think the box is so cute, and the box is like different than the package, and when the box is the same as the package, I have an easier time getting rid of the box. But so this is the Planqué palette, and look at how freaking cute this is. It's so cute. I just don't use it. So this one's gonna go too. And again, I think the reason I get drawn into these like pink and green stories, but it's like this palette is barely green. It's barely green. But to me, my eye sees that green and it's like, oh, it's green, but really it's like a pink and blue palette. I actually do like these shades too. And these were interesting, sort of like glitters, but not glitters. So this was a good palette, and I could see myself trying something else from Trixie Cosmetics because of this. I just think, again, this can go to a better home. But yeah, it's so freaking cute. It's ridiculous. Okay, so this, and these are both from Hank and Henry. I got these in like a mystery box from the brand when I wanted to try them for the first time. That's why they have signatures. So this is the Poison palette. Again, super cute. Love the owl embossing. That's their brand logo. Love the Poison theme. Love the green. But again, like pulled right in right here. I also have a thing for like poison flowers. So Foxglove and Nightshade as shade names really got me. But clearly it's barely been touched. And then the Teddy Bear palette, or the Teddy palette, kind of same. I was kind of excited to have both of these, but then I never really used them. The mattes in here are actually quite good. This satin shade is really nice. This shiny shade is very, very pretty. So these are going to go on Mercari. Honestly, if they don't, I don't know, if they don't sell I will find a way, like I will make myself start to use them, or I will repan them to keep the shades that really called to me. So we'll see. Because I just don't see that there's going to be like a huge demand for these, but I do think they're super cute. This is the Lethal Cosmetics Angelina collab. So this palette is kind of strange to me because I actually like all of the shades in here, but I can't approach it as a cohesive look. And that's been a struggle like the whole time I've had it. So I love this shade. I think the mattes are really good shades for me. This is, you know, one of the brown blue pigments. It's a good shade, but I just can never really make them look good on me together. And I've tried a few times, even though you can barely tell. So this one's got to go. The other thing too is the thing I like about Lethal is the interchangeability of the shadows, and these are smaller pans and not magnetic. So I think all the collabs they've done since then have been their standard eyeshadow pan size, and they're magnetic. This is the Enchantment palette by Shine by SD Cosmetics. I bought this to try out the brand, and it's cute, but it's pretty blue and pink. And I think one of the things that I've done to myself is I love green and yellow eyeshadow so much that I frequently convince myself I already have too much of it, and I would be better served rounding out my collection with blues. And then what actually ended up happening is I have way too much blue in my collection for how much I wear it. So this kind of falls into that category. I do really like the Shine by SD formula. I have a bunch of other stuff from them that I will keep and use and love, just in different colors. This is super old. It's the Certify palette, the Tropical Wonders palette by Certify. They're not a brand anymore. The cover, it really spoke to me. And then it was like my first Brights palette. This shade Came Broken. But this was, yeah, my first like rainbow matte palette. And I was scared of it. So I didn't really use it a ton. And even now, it just doesn't do what I need it to do. This I'll also put on Mercari. And if it sells, awesome. If it doesn't, I might repan it. Part of that is for the repanning practice. The Anastasia Aurora Glow Kit. I thought I'd never get rid of this, but the time has come. Again, I just don't use it. I do have the Alien Cosmetics like colored highlight palette, and if I had to choose between the two, I like the other one better. So that's why this one is gonna go. This is the Paulina palette by Blush Tribe, and I also really like this one, but again, it's a green and pink purple palette. I really like the greens. I don't really use this section. I used to watch Paulina a lot when she was on YouTube. She's not doing social media as much anymore, and so anyway, and Blush Tribe also is not a brand anymore. So this one can go, again, if this one sells, great. If it doesn't, then I may repan, honestly, probably just like that shade. And that's the other thing is like there are shades I could pull from all of these that I would love as singles, but I'd rather, if someone's been like dreaming of having these palettes in their collection, I'd rather it go to someone as a full intact entity than be chopped up and then discarded, because no one's gonna want half of an eyeshadow palette. So this one doesn't need an explanation. This was purchased a long time ago, before I knew any better, and yep, just don't want it. Doesn't bring me joy. I could probably dissect this one, just for like, that is a pretty unique shade to my collection. Really, that's about it. And I honestly don't think this formula is very good, so it doesn't really inspire me to keep it. This one, I have a feeling is not going to sell on Mercari, but I will list it. So this is the Her Mannerisms Lucid Dream eyeshadow palette 2, so it's their sequel. I just checked on them on Instagram, and they haven't posted since November of last year, so I have a feeling that they're sort of phasing themselves out, if they're just not completely done doing business. But this palette is huge. These are large pans. The formula was pretty good, and like oh my gosh. The formula on these was pretty good. Like, it was pretty impressive. And one of the reasons that I'm parting with this one is because it is so big. And again, I could repan. I really like this as like a blending matte for me. This shade's super pretty. This shade's nice. This shade's nice. Like, there's a lot to love in this palette. Honestly, it's just so big. And that's a big reason that I don't think I ever really reached for it a ton. And then it's also, like I said, it's magnetic. So it means it's heavy, which is good. Like, I love a magnetic palette. And actually, I still have some singles from Forever Ago from JD Glow. Those fit in here. And then I have singles from a long time ago from Makeup Forever, and then those fit in here. So I could use this as a magnetic palette to like store those. But again, there's just a lot of dead space, so they will take up less room in other palettes. And yeah, so I'll see what ends up happening with this one, just because, like I said, it's not going to be something that someone I think is like searching for. I think it's going to be something that if it sells on Mercari, it's because someone stumbled upon it. But really good formula. It's just too big. It's just too big. Okay, and this is sort of the last one, but I'll explain. So this is the Ouija palette. This was by Killer Queen Cosmetics. They are an indie brand. They got in a lot of hot water for some other just being kind of poor at customer service. This palette took a long time to ship to me, so I get it. It's also like clearly clip art that's been kind of squished to fit. There's no branding on it, so you can't tell who made it. And it is cute on the inside, honestly. But I think I'm like less enamored with the poor cover art. And a lot of these things I purchased when I was like first getting into indie brands. And so I went pretty hard, like wanting to try all of them. That's impossible. But now this kind of stuff is just, I don't know, it's not as unique because it's so easy for people to make, like a clip art palette with pre-made eyeshadows. And these are pre-made, they're not handmade. So I think that's one of the reasons it's just like lost some of its luster. This I do really like this part of like this half of the palette plus Spirit. I think those are really pretty. And so again, like if this one sits on Mercari for too long, I'll probably just pop those shadows out. And it is what it is, but we'll see. So the reason I said that we're like sort of done is, so I have this palette, the Ace Beauté Oceanic palette, and this is their old formula. Look at all those blues I'll never use. But I may decide to repan like these and these, like the more unique matte shades that I don't have, and then get rid of the rest of it. This one I'm not as concerned about reselling, just because there's not a huge market for it. So I think I'll actually get better value out of it, taking the shades that I want and repanning them. So there's that one. And then I'm also going to do, oh boy, I'm gonna cause a collapse. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing with these Juvia's Place palettes. So the Nomad, love this color story. I hardly ever grab for this palette. I think I would really like to make this singles that I could use and create singles palettes because I love these colors. I really do. And then this is the Tribe palette by Juvia's Place. And again, I love these colors. I think I would love these as singles, so I want to repan these as well. Formula is still super good. I'm literally trying to downsize my collection, and then I also want to make my single eyeshadows, which are mostly like special shades. I want to make them more accessible to myself, something that I can use more, like make my own pre-made palettes and really like enjoy them and use them. And so I think to do that, like I have to have more mattes because I do use mattes in my looks. So the other ones, I'm still on the fence about these. So this is the Beauty Bay Age of Opulence palette. Look at all those blues. And honestly, what really gets me here are the neutral shades. Like these shimmer shades are so good. And this palette has a quirk in that it is one of those ones where you have to start with your deepest shade and work to your lightest shade. If you try to do it the other way, the deep shades will just sort of disappear. So there's that. There is a big demand for this one though, so I have thought about reselling it. What I'm going to do is pull out a lot of my eyeshadow palettes and compare the mattes. So if this really strikes me as being something that fills a gap for me, I will keep it. If it looks, or if it's like the best version of the things I'm trying to keep, then I will keep it. If not, then it might end up going. And then same thing with the Beauty Bay Wilderness palette. This is kind of more my ideal color story, honestly. It's grungier. It's not as bright as like this P.Louise palette was that was similar, but obviously blown out with a lot more options. But it is grungier. Even the reds are a little grungier. And I like the shimmers. Like I said, the formula still has quirks, but it's something that I can work around with the way that I do my makeup, so it's not all bad. And it's funny because in this one, I'm like, well, it's kind of like a blue palette though, but there are fewer blue shades in this one than some of the other ones that my eye has tricked me into being like, it's a green palette. So this one, again, I'm going to compare mattes and see if it really does like stand out for me and fill a gap, and if so, then I will keep it. The problem is how much eyeshadow I truly have, and so I'm just trying to like whittle it down, and I have such an emotional connection to so much of my makeup because I like remember when I bought it, I remember why I bought it, I remember, you know, where I was, what I was doing, what my life was like at the time, that it can make it really hard. Or like things like packaging, like this is gorgeous. I want to keep it for the package because I think it's such a standout, unique packaging thing, and that is really intriguing to me. But if I'm not using the product, how much does that matter? And then same with like this theme, really cute to me. Like I love spooky stuff, and the color story isn't bad, but is it the best execution of this theming? No. Is it better than some of the like Hot Topic versions? Yeah, I think the eyeshadow quality is better than like the Hot Topic palettes. But it's still sort of like, could I be tempted to buy another Ouija themed palette one Halloween season if the color story speaks to me and the packaging is done better? Absolutely. So like this doesn't fulfill this like gapped need for me. It just sort of like tides me over until someone does it better. And that's also something that I'm aware of about my own dumb personality. So anyway, that is everything that I am decluttering right now in my eyeshadow collection. There will hopefully be more someday soon, but like I said, since it's an emotional thing, I have to do it in bits and pieces. Otherwise it gets kind of overwhelming for me. And if you would like a collection like tour, I can do that either all at once, or I can do it in bits and pieces, like my eyeshadows and then blushes or whatever, where I can do like a whole collection tour. So let me know about that, and hopefully this was, I don't know, engaging in some way. Bye!